Is this thing on?
Jim is going to speak to you about the OPA programs, which provide financial incentives and technical expertise to help achieve reduced demand and energy savings through the investment in energy efficient equipment and demand response initiatives. Jim is a graduate of Mohawk College's Energy Systems Engineering Technologies program. He completed his MBA with Ontario Hydro through Wilfrid Laurier, a course specific to marketing energy management services to large Ontario clients. He is also a CM designation. Jim has worked for Ontario Hydro, Union Gas, and the City of Hamilton. He has also worked for 6 years doing his own design-build energy management projects. His present role is a key account manager for Welland Hydro and Niagara Peninsula Energy and Horizon Utilities Corporation. So Jim, thank you.
Which is the button, the up button. Oh, yeah, I'll keep pushing one of them more.
Now that one, no.
Company should make this by mistake.
That's
Okay.
technology.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I expect a lot of you have seen these programs. Can I ask, first of all, how many are end users here? The bulk of our people end users? Okay, so at least half. How many of you have tapped into these programs? A few. Okay, so now the critical question, was it just lighting? No? Okay, so some are getting into it in HVAC. Great. Okay, so I've worked with Rick off and on. When I was with the City of Hamilton, I used AIRON every time I could, and was very well served by them, and have always been supportive of what AIRON has on the go. I found it leading edge and innovative stuff. And I'll tell you, if that BAS light self-finance through the energy savings, you get that together, the market will be huge, because I've done very similar work with Union Gas, where we kind of did an in-house energy service company, and that is always the problem, is getting the capital up front. So even more good stuff coming down the road. These programs have been cumbersome. We know that, and we're delivering them. And finally, the Ontario Power Authority has recognized that fact and has made a few changes to the programs, which I hope allows you to tap into these more fully and more often over the next year or two. First and foremost is the audit funding. We'll provide what turns out almost exclusively to be half the funds for an electrical audit. So basically it's coming into a facility, say like a Great Wolf Lodge or whatever, looking at all of the, like a dozen different energy intensive end uses, and auditing, saying here's what works, here's what does not work, and so on, right? And it's an ASHRAE level 2 audit. So it goes to plus or minus 10–15% and quantifies these opportunities very well. Or another program similar, where you can look at detailed capital analysis of one specific, say a chiller replacement, or a heating system, or an HVAC upgrade, for example, right? So there are dollars that will provide a lot of money for that. Retrofit program, there's prescriptive, engineered, custom. Prescriptive, if you're going that route, you're shortchanging yourself by about half on the available incentive dollars. Yes, it's more complex to get the engineered or custom, but if you can spend the time and have the patience to go through the process, you will get much more incentive dollars by going engineered or custom. One of the fall downs of these programs has been support. Is the contractor going to do it? Well, there's not much in it for the contractor to do it. Although there are what they're calling bounties now, just so you know, like if you bring, if a contractor brings a project in, there are dollars per kilowatt paid. And for the client, they're confusing and time consuming. So the utilities do have two roles to assist. I work as a CAM, Key Account Manager, which means I support the over 5 meg clients, the Praxair in Sarnia, the BP Plains Midstream Foundry, Niagara Parks Commission, so kind of the larger clients, and then there's Roving Energy Manager, and they support the, let's say, 100 kilowatt to 5 meg client. And these people really are tasked in giving you a hand to muddle through these programs and help you get them completed and installed, right? So there is support there. It's just a matter of tapping into your utility and tapping into this support. Okay, so I would encourage you to go, yes, it's more complex, but it will get you significantly more incentives. Preset calculation worksheets. This applies to variable frequency drives, vent systems, compressed air, and so on. Engineered and custom projects are 400 a kilowatt or 10 cents for lighting, up to 50%, and then $800 per kilowatt of peak demand savings, or 20 cents per kilowatt hour on non-lighting measures. Typically, it's 20 cents a kilowatt hour. The 800 per kilowatt really has to be a unique situation where you're able to shed a lot of load during peak hours in the summertime. And most people like their air conditioning, so they can't really do that very effectively. And it has to be, you have to put something in, it has to be in for 4 years, which is not unreasonable. These incentives typically add up to 25 to 35% of the capital cost of the modification. So again, they're quite generous. Existing building commissioning. This is something, for example, if you look at our hydro office on John Street, a couple of chillers there, really haven't been looked at for years, and they now, we bring a firm in, look at them, audit it, upgrade them, and so on. I think the cost was $18,000, and we got $16,000 incentive. So our net cost was $2,000 on this program. Chiller and cooling systems must be more than 3 years old. But again, that's not much of a caveat, right? So it's recommissioning on chilled water and chiller and cooling systems. The reason I'm going through these again is I believe a number of these programs you may not be aware of, so I'm going to go through them quickly. Demand response. Demand response. This is again for larger clients who can shed load, but even smaller, like for example, Lambton College, they only have half the campus occupied in the summer, and they will shed half their chiller load during a demand response call, and they're making about $25,000 to $30,000 by doing so, with very little to no inconvenience. This can also apply to more industrial, where they'll shut down a specific line or process. But you get roughly $80,000 per megawatt of demand shed. That talks about the contracts and availability of payment and megawatt hour time and so on. And this just describes graphically what I've described here. You get a call a day in advance and say, can you shed this tomorrow at this time? Process and systems. I had a call from Chrysler in Dearborn. This is while I was on my own a couple years ago. They wanted to look at their cooling. They had 3,000 tons of cooling at their Brampton plant, and wanted to start a study, which in the detailed engineering study is about $50,000. I said to the guy, hey, I'd love to do a study for you. But before I do, let me send you this contract. 85-page contract, 10 years of measurement and verification to prove the savings. And the guy's response was, no way in hell will we ever sign that. I said, well, then I don't want to take you, no one likes to do studies for the sake of doing studies. You do studies to get to a project. And basically said, sorry, this is it. And so dropped the study, right? They finally opened their eyes. This month, they're changing this to a model similar to the BC Hydro model. A 10-page simplified contract, 1 year of measurement and verification. So what was a program that should be our bread and butter, but I've never done one. I did one at Lakeside Steel in Malone. But what really was a completely untapped project and program, it should have been our best one, was never used. The rules are changing significantly on this. And So if you've not tapped into, you've looked at this and said, too cumbersome, understand the program's changing dramatically this month. So say you do an audit on school board buildings, and you go across a dozen buildings, say you can do this, this, and this. You can then tap into detailed engineering study and get $50,000 in engineering for detailed engineering design. 100% fully covered, right? So there's a lot of engineering assistance that was not there in the last go around a couple years ago, that is there now. Monitoring and targeting, if there is a embedded energy manager. For example, Niagara College, we just got one approved a few months ago. A really bright young engineer started, and she's there for an 18-month term, is going to work on projects at that campus, and we pay 80% of an embedded energy manager. This again is something more geared to the large users. But Niagara Parks Commission has one, there are quite a number of these roles to actually hire a person and they're 80% paid for to work specifically on energy projects. Monitoring and targeting, which is kind of the favorite in this room, I would think, and so it should be. This program is a bit unique. It doesn't really offer you a lot in the engineering support side, but it offers you more in the incentive side. So you can spend $93,000 and we'll hand you a check for $75,000 of it. So your cost is 18 grand net to put in an energy management system, right? Which I don't understand why people are not lining up for this program. So then you kind of dive into the program and you look at it and you say, okay, but you got to save 200 kilowatts, which might be doable for a 3 meg facility like, or Brock at 5 meg or Niagara College at 3 meg of use, but it doesn't apply to me, my 500 kilowatt building that, you know, is down on the service road here. So again, they recognized that fault, and a couple months ago came up with something that now, I believe the target is 7% energy reduction, which in something like the BAS systems that are described by Amit, described by Rick, you can get that pretty easily. And again, you can get 70% of your system cost as a capital incentive handed to you, right? So again, I understand why you may not have participated in this a year and a half ago, but the OPA has listened. They could have listened a little quicker, but they're listening better now, and they've eased some of these rules so these programs are much more accessible and much more usable. So for someone like a school board, if you were to look like at a BAS Lite or something like that product, I expect you could do